The sound of my son's life was a rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. It was the only thing I had listened to for 3 weeks. It was the external pacemaker keeping his surgically repaired heart beating. Then, at 11:42 p.m., the rhythm stopped. Silence. Absolute, terrifying silence. A split second later, a new sound filled the room. The high-pitched, electrical hum of a 5,000 lumen ring light powering up. My brother Tyler's voice cut through the quiet, casual, and annoyed. Finally, decent lighting. I looked at the wall. The red outlet marked medical equipment only was empty. Then, the flatline alarm exploded. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. The room didn't just get loud. It turned violent. Head nurse Sarah didn't ask Tyler to move. She tackled him. She shoved his $3,000 streaming rig into the wall with a crash that should have been startling, but I barely heard it. People talk about fight or flight. They forget the third state, the freeze. It is not paralysis. It is processing. My brain detached from the panic and floated up to the ceiling. The screaming alarms sounded like they were underwater. I wasn't scared anymore. I was hyper-observant. The smell of ozone from the fried outlet hit me first. Then the metallic taste of adrenaline. To my left, a team of 5 people was manually pumping my son's chest, fighting to get the rhythm back into his 6-month-old body. To my right, my family was inconvenienced. I saw my father, Robert. He didn't look at the baby. He looked at his Rolex. He actually tapped the glass, checking the time, as if this cardiac arrest was running late for a meeting. And my mother, Linda, she was on her knees, not praying, but brushing drywall dust off Tyler's designer jacket. She was whispering to him, soothing him, telling him the nurse was crazy for pushing him. A scream clawed at my throat. It wanted to tear out of me. It wanted to beg them to care. But the cold part of my brain, the part that had just woken up, slammed the door on that scream. Screaming is for victims. Screaming implies I still expected them to help. I didn't. My hand moved to my pocket. It wasn't shaking from fear. It was shaking from the voltage of pure hatred. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call 911. I didn't call my husband. I opened the camera app. I switched to video, and I pressed record. I framed the shot perfectly. In the background, the blurry chaos of professionals saving a life. In the foreground, crisp and clear in 4K resolution, my brother complaining about his broken ring light while my son turned blue. I captured it all. The boredom, the entitlement, the apathy. I didn't blink. I just watched the timer on the screen tick up. 1 second. 2 seconds. Evidence. It took 12 minutes to stabilize Leo. 12 minutes where the only difference between life and death was the manual compression of a nurse's hands. When the doctors finally stepped back, the rhythm returned. Beep, beep, beep. It was weaker than before, fragile, but it was there. My knees should have buckled with relief. Instead, they locked. I stood in the corner, staring at the people who raised me, and for the first time, I didn't see my parents. I saw investors protecting a failing asset. To understand why they didn't care, you have to understand the architecture of my family. We didn't have a dynamic, we had a hierarchy. My brother, Tyler, was the golden child, but he wasn't just a favorite son. He was the main character. In my parents' eyes, reality only existed to serve his narrative. If Tyler was winning, the family was successful. If Tyler was inconvenienced, the world was broken. Everyone else? We were just NPCs. Non-playable characters, background extras meant to support the plot, not disrupt it. I had spent the last 6 months burning through my savings, taking out a second mortgage, and fighting insurance companies for every single pill Leo swallowed. I had spent nearly $50,000 keeping my son alive. My parents had called that irresponsible. Yet, in that same 6 months, they had liquidated their retirement accounts to lease a Tesla for Tyler's brand image and fund a crypto startup that didn't exist. I used to think they were just supportive. Standing there, watching Tyler frantically check his subscriber count while my son gasped for air. I realized it was a pathology. They didn't see a dying baby. They saw a production delay. When the alarm screamed, my father didn't hear a death knell. He heard audio interference. He was annoyed because the sound of his grandson dying was going to ruin the audio mix on Tyler's pitch deck. I looked at my mother. She caught my eye and didn't offer comfort. She offered a glare, a sharp, warning look that said, "Fix this. You're making a scene." That was the moment the daughter in me died. I realized I had been begging for love from people who were incapable of feeling it. I had been trying to explain empathy to sharks. I stopped recording, not because I was done, but because I had enough. I put the phone in my pocket. The sadness evaporated, leaving only a cold, hard clarity. I wasn't their family anymore. I was their creditor. And I was about to call in the debt. You expect an apology. That is what normal people do when they almost kill a child. They cry. They beg for forgiveness. They drop to their knees. But my parents didn't operate on guilt. They operated on damage control. The moment the doctors cleared the room, my father went to work. He didn't check on Leo. He walked straight up to head nurse Sarah. Robert spent 30 years in corporate risk management, and I watched him slip into his work persona like a shark slipping into water. He lowered his voice, but the room was quiet enough for me to hear every word. He told her the outlet was loose before they arrived. He said the equipment was faulty. He actually used the words preventable facility error. He threatened her job, dropping names of board members he played golf with, trying to bully the woman who just saved his grandson's life into silence. While he handled the staff, my mother handled me. She took my arm. Her grip wasn't comforting. It was a vice. She steered me into the corner, away from the incubator. She reached into her purse and pulled out a cocktail napkin and a Mont Blanc pen. Her eyes were wide, but not with fear. "We need to get ahead of this, Jessica," she whispered. "Tyler has angels watching the stream. Investors. Big ones. If word gets out that there was a medical incident, the optics are terrible. It looks messy. Investors hate messy." She shoved the napkin into my hand. It was a contract. A crude, handwritten non-disclosure agreement scrawled on flimsy paper. It listed bullet points. No social media posts. No police reports. The incident was to be referred to as a family misunderstanding. "Sign it," she said. "For your brother. He is on the verge of a breakthrough. Don't be selfish, Jessica. You're always so dramatic. Stop overreacting and think about the family's future." I looked down at the napkin. Then I looked at her. She called me selfish. She called the flat line of an infant a bad optic. She called my grief drama. In the past, I would have cried. I would have tried to explain how much that hurt. But the part of me that wanted her approval was gone. It had flatlined 20 minutes ago. I didn't rip up the napkin. I didn't throw it in her face. I folded it neatly. I placed it in my pocket, right next to my phone. "You're right, Mom," I said. My voice was even, dead level. "We should document everything." She smiled, relieved. She thought she had won. She thought she had managed the risk. She had no idea she had just handed me the second piece of evidence in her own indictment. I walked out of the PICU. I needed air, but more importantly, I needed a secure line. My family was still inside, debating which filter would look best for Tyler's apology video, blissfully unaware that I had just declared war. I walked to the far end of the parking lot and dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang once. Jess. Hearing Matthew's voice almost broke me. He was 4,000 miles away, deployed on a carrier in the Pacific, and the static on the line was the only thing connecting us. I didn't waste time on hello. I told him everything. The unplugged cord, the silence, the napkin. I expected him to yell. I needed him to yell. But Matthew went deadly quiet. It was the silence of a soldier who just identified a threat. "Do whatever you have to do," he said. His voice was low, vibrating with a terrifying calm. "Burn it down, Jess. Burn it all down. I'll transfer the savings. Get the best lawyers in the city. I don't care what it costs." Roger that, I whispered. I hung up and made the second call. This one wasn't emotional. It was tactical. I called a digital forensic firm my lawyer had recommended during my messy divorce from my ex, a number I thought I'd never need again. I need a scrape, I told the technician. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, everything from the user Tyler the founder in the last 4 hours. Is the content still live? He asked. No, the stream cut, but the VOD is up. I can get it, he said. But if he deletes it, he won't, I cut in. He thinks he's the victim. He thinks the comments are on his side. Just get me the data, the video, the donation logs, and the chat history, especially the chat. I knew my brother. I knew his ego. He lived for the engagement. He wouldn't delete the footage immediately because to him, even negative attention was monetization. He was probably already drafting a clickbait title, Hospital Nightmare. Almost lost my rig. I walked back into the hospital. I stopped at the security desk. I didn't ask for a visitor pass. I asked for the head of legal compliance. My name is Jessica, I told the bewildered receptionist. I have video evidence of reckless endangerment committed on hospital property by a visitor. I also have a witness intimidation attempt in writing. I need to speak to your risk officer, not the one currently in the PICU. His boss. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't a sister. I was a prosecutor building a case, and I had just secured the evidence that would put them away. 2 days later, I sat in a conference room with the hospital's general counsel and my own lawyer. The air conditioner hummed, cold and sterile. On the mahogany table sat a single flash drive, the forensic report. My parents were blowing up my phone. 47 missed calls, text messages ranging from, "We're family," to "You're ungrateful," to "We will sue you for defamation." I didn't answer a single one. I simply turned the phone face down. Silence is a weapon, and I was wielding it. "We have the video," my lawyer said, plugging the drive into his laptop. But the forensic team found something else, something worse. He opened a file marked chat, log, export, TXT. It was a transcript of the live comments from Tyler's stream. Thousands of lines of emojis, slang, and meaningless hype, but the technician had highlighted one interaction in bright yellow. "Look at the timestamp," the lawyer said. 11:42 p.m. 1 minute before the alarms went off. I leaned in. The blue light of the monitor reflected in my eyes. I read the text. User, medtech, 99. Yo, dude, stop. My stomach dropped. I felt a cold chill radiate from my spine to my fingertips. "Play the video at that timestamp," I commanded. My voice sounded foreign to me, robotic. The lawyer clicked the file. On screen, Tyler was adjusting his hair in the reflection of his phone. He squinted at the chat. I watched his lips move. I heard him read the comment out loud. "Yo, dude, stop. Red outlet is life support." Tyler paused. He looked at the outlet. He looked back at the camera. And then he laughed. "Relax, bro," Tyler said to the screen, his voice dripping with arrogant dismissal. "It's just a backup battery. The kid's fine. I need the lumens. Trust the process." Then he reached down, and he pulled the plug. The room went silent. This wasn't negligence. Negligence is an accident. Negligence is not knowing better. This was knowledge. He had been warned. He had acknowledged the risk, and he had decided that his ring light was more valuable than the electrical current keeping my son's heart beating. "That changes everything," the hospital counsel whispered, his face pale. "That's not a facility accident. That's depraved heart recklessness. It's attempted manslaughter," my lawyer corrected, closing the laptop with a snap that sounded like a gunshot. "And because he broadcasted across state lines for profit, we might even be looking at federal wire charges." I stared at the blank laptop lid. Any tiny, lingering shred of guilt I had felt about destroying my brother's life evaporated. It was gone. In its place was a feeling I hadn't expected. Peace. They hadn't just made a mistake. They had made a choice. And now, I was going to make sure they lived with the consequences of that choice for the rest of their lives. File it, I said. File everything. And send a copy to the district attorney. I didn't leak the video anonymously. I wasn't hiding. I attached my full name to the police report. And public records have a funny way of finding the internet. But it was the chat logs that turned a spark into a wildfire. The internet loves a villain, but it loves justice even more. Within 6 hours, the hashtag number "the live stream betrayal" was trending #1 globally. It wasn't just a news story. It was a digital execution. I watched the subscriber count on Tyler's channel, the number he worshipped more than God, start to freefall. Then, the bans hit. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, permanently demonetized, permanently suspended. His sponsors fled like rats from a sinking ship. The energy drink company issued a statement distancing themselves. The VPN service canceled his contract. His empire of ring lights and affiliate links evaporated in a single afternoon. But the real blow landed on my father. The optics of a senior risk management officer bullying a nurse to cover up the reckless endangerment of an infant were too toxic to touch. Security escorted him out of the building before lunch. He lost his pension. He lost his severance. He lost the reputation he had spent 40 years polishing. 3 days later, they cornered me. Not in the PICU security had barred them from the floor, but in the main lobby of the hospital. They looked small. That's the only way I can describe it. My father's suit was wrinkled. My mother wasn't wearing makeup. Tyler looked like a ghost, his face pale, his eyes glued to a phone that no longer had a signal. "You have to stop this," my mother hissed, grabbing my arm. But her grip was weak this time. "They're foreclosing on the house. The legal fees. Jessica, we're going to lose everything. Just issue a statement. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you gave him permission." "Yeah, Jess, come on," Tyler whined, his voice cracking. "My life is over. I can't even get a job at a drive-thru. People recognize me. They spit on my car. I looked at them. I looked for a shred of remorse. I looked for a question about Leo. How is he? Is his heart strong? Nothing." I pulled out my phone. I didn't open the camera app this time. I opened the video file. I turned the screen toward them and pressed play. We stood there in the lobby, watching the digital ghost of Tyler laugh at the warning comment. "Relax, bro. I need the lumens." The sound of his own laughter hung in the air between us. Tyler flinched like he'd been slapped. My father looked away. "You didn't ask for permission," I said softly. "You laughed at a warning." "That's not a misunderstanding, Mom. That's a confession." I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. I handed it to my father. "What is this?" he asked, his hands trembling. "A restraining order," I said, "and a civil suit for damages." "You wanted to be famous, Tyler? You wanted the world to watch you? Congratulations. They're watching, and they aren't going to look away until you've paid for every single second of that silence." I turned my back on them and walked toward the elevators. Behind me, I heard my mother start to cry. It was a loud, ugly, theatrical sob. But for the first time in my life, I didn't stop. I pressed the button for the cardiac floor, and I went up to see my son.